Okay. So I first got goats around the time that I first moved to the island. I had two goats named Esther and Petunia. And they were Nigerian dwarf Nubian crosses, so they were small. I can pick them up in my arms, kind of small. And I milked them with an elaborate milking machine. And then I moved up here onto our property, and I would tie them to a tree or the fence in the yard. I didn't have a barn, I didn't have a milk stand, I didn't have anything. But I was still able to milk them. The first goat, Petunia, I got them together. And the first year I tried to breed them, and nothing happened. I waited and waited, and no babies appeared. It's hard to tell if they're pregnant, they're fat and happy. And so I decided to start milking the goat anyway. And I figured newborn babies eat every 2 hours, so probably I should go milk my goat every 2 hours. And so around the clock, I milked Petunia every 2 hours, and she had tiny, tiny teats from a young, small goat that had never been bred. And I would milk away and spend, 5-10 minutes pretending to milk her every 2 hours around the clock. And eventually, a small amount of milk started coming out. And I got up to maybe a quarter cup a day. I mean, not a lot. And then gradually I started spacing out her milkings, adding an extra 15 minutes between milkings each day. So it was 2 hours and 15 minutes. And the next day it'd be 2 hours and 30 minutes. The next day, 2 hours and 45 minutes. And slowly lengthening it out until it was 3 times a day and then 2 times a day like a normal person. And I would call that a proof of concept that milk came out. But then I went to Alaska to go commercial fishing for the summer. And so I left her with my goat sitter, who did not milk her twice a day, but she did start to fill up with milk amazingly. And so she did have to milk her while I was gone. But then the next year, we had babies, which is much better, and had regular milk goats, and we were able to make cheese and yogurt and ice cream and get a decent amount of milk for it. These two goats were gifted to me. I suppose I bought Marty, but the first two, Esther and Petunia, I was traveling and doing other things, and I relinquished my goats back to the person who I had originally got them from, and she found them new homes. And then a couple of years later, someone brought Toad and a bunch of other goats over, and another friend brought some other goats over, and a neighbor offered us some of her goats, and these are our two keepers. We plan on keeping Toad and Marty for the rest of their goat lives. They're about 7 or 8 years old each. And Toad, she's looking very glossy and healthy because we're no longer milking her. She's making a very small amount of milk, but not really worth the trouble. She, last winter, suddenly stopped making milk, and we were very, very worried about her. Our previous goat, lady goat, who had been her friend, suddenly stopped making milk a couple winters ago, and we thought, oh well, her milk dropped off. I don't know why. And then we saw she wasn't really eating, but she's still happy and healthy. But we told our vet, and our vet said bring her immediately. And we brought her in, and she put her on an IV and tried to give her some supplemental nutrition, and she rapidly died. By the time we were driving away from dropping her off, she was dying. She died. And we were very sad to lose her. So then when Toad last winter stopped eating, we went into emergency mode, and we got syringes without needles, just the nipple on the end, and forced yogurt into her and candy and anything else we could find. Got her all the leaves we could find and just give her absolutely everything we could think of to keep her eating, because if goats stop eating, then their rumen shuts down and it can't get going again. So it goes from I feel a little funny and didn't feel like eating to a serious condition and death, if unchecked. And so she pulled through. She started eating again, and she didn't really start making milk again, which was okay because she was a hard goat to milk. She did okay for me. She did great for my husband. But anytime we had a goat sitter, they ended up crying because she would lay down on the bucket, which was very difficult to work around. Harder than a kicking goat, I would say, because she tried kicking and we dealt with it, and then she started laying down on the bucket. So now she's a pet, but she's so much fatter and glossier and healthier, even with far less feed than Marty. It is very evident that you indeed do need a lot of extra calories to create milk. And I have read that creating milk, being a dairy animal, is harder on their bodies than being pregnant. So again, National Institute of Health that says that you can go back to your pre-pregnancy diet in dairy animals is far more stressful on their bodies, and they need more calories when they are creating milk than when they are pregnant. And I certainly see that in Marty Goat. A little while ago, all her hair was falling out very suddenly. I think that was this summer or spring. And now she's looking a lot better thanks to all those apples. She's filled out again, and feeling better. But it is, she's not as shiny, and she's not as thick of a coat, and not as filled out as Tote. She's clearly putting a lot of energy into making milk to feed my family, even with all the supplemental grain we're giving her. And we have hay in the hay feeder for them. And we also practice rotational grazing. So we have a number of pastures, and when we built this barn, we built it with 4 doors, 1 door in every side. So there's the door that we come in and out, and then there's a door in each direction off of that, so that the idea is it makes it very easy to rotate. And if it's easy, then we'll do it. So you open one gate, and then a few days later you shut that gate and open a different one, so the goats are in a different pasture without walking back and forth and changing fencing, just opening a different door. And that should give them fresh things to eat, and it should also have a lower parasite load by having less poop in that area, and any bugs that were in the poop will die before the goats come back to that area, is the goal. So we were doing a really great job at that, and we had 10 pastures going around our house, and then across the street to my parents' house, and then back again. And we have about our property is 9 acres. In the front 3 acres, we have a perimeter fence. And then about 2 of those 3 acres is pasture for the animals. And so this side has 4 pastures. And then the other side has a separate barn and separate milk stand and has a few more pastures. And I need probably 4 more pastures over there, so we have 8. And I could subdivide them further, but gates get more tricky. So I'm doing a really thorough job getting every last drop out so that her body keeps making this much milk or more. And once absolutely no more milk comes out, even with massaging, then we are done. Oh, sorry, you're tangled. Are you needing Toad to get out of your way? So here's our gate. Currently, they're tied together so that they have a little passageway into their new pasture. And then I'm going to finish fixing the fence in this pasture, and that's where they'll be next. And there's lots of good stuff growing there. And this is where I just put them a few days ago, and they're eating it up. Our pond is super green because I'm not aerating it or filtering it. And it is the runoff from the house, the roof, the wetlands, everything gets channeled into there. We've been digging it out, and it's just started refilling. And the geese like to go in there. They do a good job bringing the green in too.